Michael Keaton from Batman 1989, Val Kilmer from Batman Forever, George Clooney from Batman and Robin, Christian Bale from the Dark Knight trilogy, Ben Affleck from the DC Extended Universe, and Robert Pattinson from The Batman. How many of you are there? Too many. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, where I review action figures and then articulate 5 points to help you decide if you want to add that figure to your collection. The 5 points I discuss are packaging, presentation, posability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and if you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube rigmarole. In honor of Batman Day 2023, today we're taking a deep dive into the all-new DC Multiverse Batman Ultimate Movie Collection. Starting with the packaging, and this box is so tall I can't even fit the whole thing in frame. Why, it's almost as tall as the poster board that I use. The first thing that'll stand out to you is this silver foil bat symbol. Underneath it says this is the Batman Ultimate Movie Collection, and then under that we have the logos for Batman 1989 and Batman Forever, Batman and Robin and the Dark Knight trilogy, as well as Batfleck's logo and the logo from The Batman. Down here, the DC Multiverse logo says it includes 6 Batman figures and 1 bat signal. Warner Brothers 100 years anniversary logo in the corner. Up top, we see that logo again along with that foil bat symbol, and then once more on the side. On the back is a Gotham City skyline that's going to be wonderful for figure photography, and then down here are artistic representations of the 6 different Batmen that are included. I'm going to look at these more closely during playability, though I do think it's interesting that the artwork is the Batman v Superman Batfleck design instead of the Justice League one, which is the figure in the box. Backing out of frame, we can see that box opens like a book, showing us all the goodies we're going to get. Each figure comes in a classy black tray with the name and logo on a silver foil tab. And then in the bottom quadrant are the figure stands, trading cards, and bat signal. Combined with the built-in versatility of the backdrop, and for packaging, I'm giving this set 1.5 points. Talk about free the nipple. Some of these figures are reuse with minor tweaks. Clooney is what I'm going to call a pre-use because he's going to be getting his own wave. And Keaton's available in both this and the Batmobile 2-pack. So, as of this recording, the only figure completely unique to this set is Kilmer. Out of all the reissued figures, the most similar to the original is Bale. The only major change in his case is the cloth cape. It cuts a much nicer profile than the original plastic one, which I feel was a bit too narrow. That said, the finish on the new one is a bit glossier this time around, which I don't quite like as much. The more muted finish of the original showed the details better and just looked more natural. Another downgrade is how the eyes have been painted, which were much straighter on the original release. There is, however, some additional silver paint on the gloves, which is a nice touch. I do wish that those premium paint editions made their way over to Batfleck. As I said in the standalone video, all the straps and panels should be black, with a gray bodysuit underneath. I'm sorry to say that I do think the cloth goods cape is a downgrade in this instance. For one thing, the sculpted cape had a phenomenal amount of screen-accurate texture detail, but most importantly, this is not accurate. Affleck's cape was straight across with a few points throughout, whereas this has been given the signature swoopy Batman scallops. I can, however, forgive all of that thanks to this wonderful new head sculpt. Compared to this one from the Flash movie based on Ben Affleck's stunt double, this is pretty much the Batfleck head we've been waiting for, if not the costume. As noted previously, this is the BVS design and not Justice League. It really makes you wonder if this was supposed to be a BVS figure and then they changed their mind. On the subject of improved heads, and here we have Pattinson. Of all the reissues, this one is the most improved. Recall my criticism over the inaccurate collar of the original, and as we can see, that's been resculpted, and then recall my complaints about what a side-eyed no-neck monster the original was, and we can see that he's now been given a proper neck and properly painted front-facing eyes. Combined with a new grayer bodysuit, one with a marvelous amount of painted detail I might add, as well as new fisted hands, and this jumped from one of my least favorite McFarlane Batman figures to one of my favorites in the set. Only criticism is that just like Batfleck, the cape is inaccurate, as this version of the cape had a completely different cut in the film. My Batmobile 2-pack hasn't even shipped yet, so I can't compare them, but I do have some thoughts. First, to McFarlane's credit, I will say that this does look like Michael Keaton. At least weighs more than this. But I'm baffled by the choice of taking a character whose mask was this big bulky nightmare that couldn't even turn and making him into a pencil neck. On a whim, I decided to swap the neck peg out with Rebirth Batman, and this this is a lot better. Looking at the profile, it's a lot more proportionate, and even though the neck still should be thicker, this does mitigate it a bit. Keaton, of course, had that muscle suit. I'm particularly impressed with what a good job they did on the utility belt, but I'm baffled and disappointed by this bat symbol. For one thing, it's painted very sloppy, and for another, they didn't paint the black outline around it. I don't exactly have the steadiest hand in the world, so fixing this would be very difficult for me. Hopefully, if I ever get that Batmobile 2-pack, that one's going to be better. Moving on down, we have all the unique details on the gloves and gauntlets, as well as the boots. If you didn't know, they actually built Batman's boots off of a pair of Nikes, but no such branding here, not surprising. Also, these flaps are a nice soft rubber piece that will not get in the way. I'm actually going to jump ahead and go straight to Clooney for a couple of reasons. One, he also has the muscular bodysuit, though the makers of that movie went a lot crazier with it than Keaton's. I also have to remark at what an incredible likeness this is. To my eye, this looks a lot closer to Clooney than Keaton looked like Keaton. Instead of fins, Clooney had more of a blade. Very different approach to the utility belt. Also, the figure has a slight blue tint to it, which is really nice. Unfortunately, that black cape really clashes with it. Lifting that up, there's a very curious peg hole back here. Kinda makes me wonder if the single release is gonna have a rubber cape. And speaking of rubber things, his rubber bat butt is nowhere near as defined as in the Schumacher film. And of course, there's those infamous bat nipples. I suspect the lack of nipples might be one reason why they went with the sonar suit for Batman Forever. Well, that and just how cool it is. Similar to Clooney, the likeness to Val Kilmer is wonderful. All that extra detail has been included in the cowl, and I'm pretty sure that it's been cast in a marbleized plastic. Touch of gold and platinum in the belt, and lest we forget the very important crotch vents. Flipping that cape up, he also has a peg hole, and wouldn't you know it, but Bale has that exact peg hole, which is where his rubberized cape is plugged into the single-carded version. If that's not a confirmation of single-carded figures coming soon, I don't know what is. As much as some of the upgrades to existing figures are very welcome, I can't help but feel that aside from the cape, Bale is a bit of a downgrade. That said, much as it pains me to say, Keaton is the worst of the bunch, whereas Kilmer might actually be my favorite, and of course I'm excited for the head swap potential of Affleck. Though each individual figure sits somewhere on a spectrum of quality, for presentation I'm giving this 6-pack 1 whole point. Moving on to posability, and although each figure in the set has the same articulation scheme, all of them will have slightly different range because of their costumes. From the top end, to make it easier for them to back out of the driveway, each figure in the set has a dumbbell joint in their neck, including the ones that shouldn't be able to move their neck at all. They can look up this far, with Bale ironically being the worst of the bunch, and they can look down this far, which is all fairly equivalent. In ascending order of arm raising, and here we have Christian Bale with the lowest reach, next is Keaton, then Kilmer, then Clooney, then Pattinson, and lastly with the highest reach, Affleck. All 6 have rotator cuffs and bicep swivel. Each figure also has double jointed elbows with fairly equivalent bends. And then at the ends of the arms, they all have McFarlane style wrist balls. They can swivel, and depending on which way you point them, either hinge side to side or up and down. Move into the middle and they have diaphragm joints and dumbbell waists. In terms of arching back, Bale is actually the worst, with Pattinson being the best, and everyone else somewhere in between. Hunching forward, and Pattinson's the worst, with Kilmer being the best of the 6 and the best hunch forward I've ever seen in a DC multiverse. To be honest though, Keaton and Clooney are both really impressive too, but of course all of them can tilt and twist. Below the utility belt, and all 6 have McFarlane style hips. High kick goes to Clooney, Affleck gets 90 degrees, and everyone else is around here. In terms of hip twist, worst is going to be Bale, with Ben being best, and everyone else somewhere in between. Moving on down the leg, and everybody has double jointed knees, with Pattinson having the deepest bend. They also all have toe articulation, and McFarlane ankles that can swivel, hinge, and pivot. Do be warned though, the detents are particularly wonky this time. As such, getting this set to stand has been a particular pain in the neck. None of these figures have bad articulation, though admittedly some are a little more limited than others, but I'm particularly astounded at how good the range is in Clooney and Kilmer. For posability, I'm giving this set 1 whole point. Moving on to playability, and this set comes with 6 crisp new DC Multiverse figure stands. It also comes with 6 trading cards. Similar to the box, they've been given silver foil. Here we have Keaton, Kilmer, Clooney, Christian, Affleck, and Pattinson. To McFarlane's credit though, each one gets a write-up specific to that film's Batman. Much to the chagrin of many a collector, the one thing they do not include are character-specific accessories like batarangs or grapnel guns. In fact, all the figures have been given fists, the only one with open hands being Affleck, but if you have the previous releases for Bale and Pattinson, you could always swap those hands. Since the gloves are so similar between Keaton and 3 Jokers, I thought I might try to swap those hands. Sadly, the pegs are incompatible. I also thought I might try the Keaton from the Flash wave, but those are incompatible too. So yeah, no wonderful toys for this Batman. Fingers crossed that Clooney will fare better when he's given his single release, and Kilmer when they invariably announce his. In lieu of character-specific accessories, they did give us this very impressive bat signal. It's made of plastic but painted to look like it's metal, nice base with some cool gargoyles, and it lights up. Admittedly, it doesn't light up very well, but it looks pretty good from the front. The really cool thing is that it comes with alternate inserts for the different Batmen. The logos are stamped on, but the plastic discs are nice and thick. To swap them out, simply pop off this ring, pop out the disc, and replace. This one's for Keaton, Kilmer, and Clooney. This one reminds people that Batman's somewhere out there. This one's for picking a fight with Superman. And this one's not just a call, it's a warning. As much as I like this bat signal, and I do like it a lot, I just wish it didn't have to be one or the other. I can't speak for you, but I would have gladly paid an extra 10 to 15 bucks if it meant that everybody had some extra hands and weapons. But playability is more than just accessories, it's also about how well your figures play with others. For a very important comparison that applies to Keaton, Kilmer, and Clooney, and here we have the Mattel Multiverse Michael Guff Alfred. Sadly, he is a bit on the small side. Even so, we love you, old man. Since Jack Nicholson's likeness rights are notoriously astronomical, it's very unlikely we'll ever get his version of the Joker, so here we have the comedian in Mortal Kombat 11. But for all you curious customizers out there, here he is with the Nightfall Catwoman and the Arkham City Penguin, and here he is in between the NECA version and also the version of himself from The Flash. Swapping the new head with a Flash body, and just like Blockbuster Video, wow, what a difference. This head sculpt is vastly superior, and the thicker neck works to its advantage. As long as we're talking about the Flash, we might as well bring out Barry, both old and young. It's interesting because this figure, based on the Returns costume, is a lot closer to Michael Keaton's proportions, and if they had only went with this system for the head joint, we wouldn't have gotten saddled with this. The Flash segues us very nicely to Affleck and this terrible misfire based on his appearance in that movie. You'll be happy to know that even though it seems a bit small, the new head does fit, and fit very well, and although the whole thing would benefit from a repaint, the color difference isn't that bad. Of course, since he is mainly reuse, he scales just fine with the rest of his Justice League, well, give or take one oversized Superman. On that note, the new and improved Pattinson looks great with his Penguin and Catwoman. Hopefully, when the Batman 2 comes out, we'll get a completely redone Zoe Kravitz. I never did get the Paul Dano Riddler figure, but here's Val Kilmer with the classic comic version and also Tim Drake Robin. Hopefully, we will be getting movie versions of both these characters. Also, my apologies for using the red and black version instead of the red and green, but I'm currently customizing that version. For the only Two-Face we can put Forever with, and here's Aaron Eckhart from The Dark Knight. Admittedly, he is just a touch scarier than Tommy Lee Jones. This brings us to the Dark Knight himself and his gallery of rogues. Out of all the movie Batman, Bale's gotten the most love so far, though that Clooney wave is coming. In the meantime, here's some comic-style substitutions. For customizers looking to make a live-action Superman, here are a couple of options. From some of the customs I've seen, Action Comics 1000 makes a pretty good base for Christopher Reeve. We know George Clooney's supposed to have a Superman because he mentions him in the movie. Either way, I've also seen the Page Punchers makes for a great Nicolas Cage Superman, and I'll be very curious to see if Pattinson gets a Superman of his very own. For a relative scale comparison, and here are just a couple of our Batmen with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man, but as always, here's everyone with Stealth Iron Man. As much as individual, character-specific accessories would have been preferred, I don't want to minimize the coolness of this bat signal, and while I do hope that future single-issue releases will include more, in the meantime, there are at least some workarounds. The most important thing would be to give some of these Batmen devils to dance in the pale moonlight with. For playability, I'm giving this six-pack 1 whole point. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price.
Never leave the cave without it.
Even with the lack of character-specific accessories, $120 is a steal. It breaks down to $20 a figure, with the bat signal being essentially free, and is a good way to get certain figures you might have missed out on before, or figures that aren't yet available otherwise. And if all you want is a Keaton, the whole set is still cheaper than Mezco. For price, I'm giving the Ultimate Batman 6-pack 1 whole point for a grand total of 5.5 out of 5. How would you rank these 6 Batman movie figures from worst to best? Sound off in the comments below, and happy Batman Day! If you like this video, check out one of these. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.